Hello, hello, period three. I'm here to record the lecture for Forest Fire Slides that I posted today. Live now, but that doesn't really matter so much. I am recording this so you can get on whenever you need to and figure this stuff out. Before we start that, I just want to mention the Edpuzzle. Started using Edpuzzle. I think you're all familiar with it. If you're not, you are by now. Edpuzzle is really cool. I can just pop up videos and add some questions in between, and you watch a 5-minute video and you answer 5 or 6 questions, and I can get an grade in for you. So we're going to use Edpuzzle. We're probably going to go to every other time. I felt like the slides, every time we met, we were going through slides. So that was easy enough. Then I was giving you assignments, but this sort of breaks it up. So what I'm looking to do is set of slides, little information, little thing to do on that day, and then an puzzle on the slides we went over the last time, and then more slides, and then an Edpuzzle based on that slide. So every other time we'll be doing slides. Every other time you come on, you'll be doing an Edpuzzle. That gives me a lot of grades, which is good. A lot of grades that are good for you because do the Edpuzzle, you get to rewatch it. You get to make sure you got the right answers right. Most of the time, there'll be open-ended ones because multiple choice is a little bit too easy, but there'll be some multiple choice in there. But this last one that you did had a lot of open-ended on it. So just read it. Watch it. Boom. Answer the questions. That's it. Easy peasy. There was only 1 or 2 people in all of my classes that had some issues getting on, or they were locked out of the video, and that doesn't make any sense to me. That I asked a bunch of teachers that have been using Edpuzzle what that means, and basically that means that that's a you thing. If all my other students are getting it, then I've assigned it correctly. I've done it. So the biggest mistake, Mr. Bradshaw was telling me because he uses it, the biggest mistake is that you guys aren't signed in to it through your Google account. You can't just go to edpuzzle.com and start it or whatever. You have to go through the whole signing on with Google and making sure that you're signing on with your school account and all that stuff. I'm not so sure it works with phones. I don't know how it works. But if you're not getting on, it's probably a you problem. So go to the Edpuzzle. The first one I gave you, which was a couple days ago, and look on the stream there because I included a tutorial video. And that tutorial video, or just a quick YouTube, will show you how student, just YouTube how students use Edpuzzle, and there's a bunch of tutorials for you. But it's usually a you thing if you can't get locked. If you get locked out of the video, and it's only happened to 3 people, I think, out of all of my students, so it shouldn't be too big of a problem. All right. Away from Edpuzzle, we are moving to the slide. So you have the slideshow open. You will see that lesson 9 has the title of How Are Forests Managed? All right. So slide number 2 gives you the agenda as usual. Slide number 3 is the objective. So after this lesson, you should be able to describe what is meant by forest management and recognize the role played by national forests in land usage. Okay. Forest management involves carefully applied harvesting of trees. This is slide 4, sorry, with a replacement in mind rather than allowing any type of lumbering. All right. So managing a forest, making sure that the ground, number 1, there's getting enough sun so the canopy is not too thick so the sun can reach the ground. Number 2, making sure that soil is there. Number 3, making sure there's enough room. There's a bunch of things you have to worry about when you're managing a forest, okay? Are there too many? Is there too much dead material on the ground? Is it a fire hazard? And things like that, okay? Slide 5. Clear cutting, right? So here's how forests can be managed. Clear cutting is one. So clear cutting, it tells you here the definition of clear cutting. It can be used to mimic a natural fire, okay? All the trees in an area, in a small area, are removed to create open areas that quickly sprout grasses and forage for animals. Since redwoods grow best in open sunlight and sprout from its own stumps in an ecologically friendly way to manage redwoods and numerous forests like the redwood. That's a lot of words, and they said redwood a bunch of times. So clear cutting is what they do when a forest maybe it's getting too dense. and the sunlight isn't hitting the ground. So they'll clear cut. That's exactly what it means. They'll take a bunch of different trees and they'll cut a section, right? So maybe an acre or 2 acres, in a forest, they'll clear cut. And of course they'll use the wood too, but it's not done for economic purposes. It's not to get the lumber, but they won't waste that wood that they cut down. They'll clear cut. And then what that leaves is a big open field, right? And that big open field is now exposed to total sunlight and blah, 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 and weather. So it's going to start to grow and sprout new grasses and shrubs and all kinds of stuff. It's going to start to succeed, right? The succession and start to regrow. So when that happens, that's really good for animals because there's a lot of stuff for them to forage on and stuff like that. So that's the way they manage forests like the redwoods and stuff like that, because those trees get so big, they make those canopies and then the sun can't hit the ground. So clear cutting is a way to make sure that the sun hits the ground and it's all good. All right. Seed tree harvesting is like a clear cut, except that few healthy trees are left standing to naturally reseed the area. Okay. So what that means is imagine clear cutting. Clear cutting is just cutting down an open field, right? This seed tree, you would leave 2 or 3. Imagine this field now clear cut, but there's 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 trees that they left. That's because they naturally seed, right? Trees drop their seeds, and what that's doing is that's helping new trees of that species grow there instead of just the grasses and the shrubs. Okay, so that's kind of an interesting way. So that's called seed tree. There's on slide 6, shelter wood harvesting. Shelter wood harvesting leaves enough trees standing to provide protection and shade for delicate new seedlings planted on the site. When the young trees have grown, the older trees are removed. Okay, so shelter wood is exactly what it means, what it says there. Shelter wood that shelters. It's going to leave enough trees. So now maybe not just 1 or 2 to naturally seed. Now imagine more to where it's actually providing some shade on this clear cut area, right? And what that shade will do will protect some of the delicate seedlings of trees, so they're not totally exposed to the weather. So they have time and protection to take root and to grow into trees. And then once those trees are strong enough to live on their own, the young ones, the saplings, then they'll take down those large trees, either totally to clear cut or to leave a couple around for natural seeding. All right. Also on slide 6 is group selection. Selective cutting removes individual trees in a cycle. Large trees are cut and smaller trees are left standing to reseed the area. When the small seeds have grown large enough, they are cut, and the trees that grew from their seeds and left to reseed are there. Think of a cycle, right? Think of, okay, now instead of just leaving a couple trees up there to naturally seed, what they're doing is they're selecting them, right? They're group selection. So they're going to clear cut this area, and they're going to leave the mid-range trees, right? And they're going to cut down the big ones. Instead of just leaving a couple of the big ones around, they're going to cut down the big ones and they're going to leave the mid ones. The mid ones will drop their seeds, right? And they'll have smaller ones start growing. Then when those medium ones get bigger, they'll chop those down. The ones that were small are now getting bigger, and it's a cycle, right? So they're constantly cutting down larger trees so the medium trees can do the reseeding. And then when those medium trees get too big, they'll cut it down. What that does is that gives it a good way of keeping the sun hitting the canopy, not getting the same height, and more sun hitting the ground if need be. All right, so that's group selection. It's like a cycle. I think of Christmas tree farms when I hear that. I think of, okay, we start a Christmas tree and the Christmas tree grows, right? And we start a bunch of different Christmas trees every year, so they're all growing at different ages, at different heights, right? And then when the ones that we want to cut for Christmas get big enough, we cut them down, right? And then by the following year, the other ones that were a little lower, a year or 2 behind, are back up, and they're constantly on a Christmas tree farm. You constantly see different sizes of trees because they're using that group selection, that cycle. All right. Slide 7. Slide 7 is single tree selection. And this says strategically removing individual trees of different sizes helps maintain diversity. This harvesting technique is used mainly in watercourse and lake protection. zones and areas with special considerations such as protected wildlife habitats and prairies. Okay, so a single tree selection is strategically removing individual trees of different sizes. So again, we just talked about that with the cycle, but when you single tree selection, you may take down this large one, but not that large one. So it's not really cycling. It's strategically removing trees. So you can have some of the older trees still, and some of the younger trees and some of the medium trees, so there can be some biodiversity in the habitat. And they do that a lot around lake protection zones and habitats and parks and stuff like that. So that's a little caveat of that whole tree selection cycle, right? This is like a single tree selection, so it's actually more unique and more specified. All right, slide number 8. Slide number 8. Okay. Established in 1905, the Forest Service is an agency of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The Forest Service manages public lands and national forests and grasslands. Okay. So in 1905, the Forest Service agency became part of the Department of Agriculture. Right? And what they do is they manage public lands. They manage the national forests, the state parks. They manage grasslands across the country. And by manage, we mean they do that stuff. They selectively cut. They keep the sun hitting the forest floor. They clear cut. They do different things that they have to do. All right. And then it says Gifford Pinchot, the first chief of the Forest Service, summed up the mission of the Forest Service best: to provide the greatest amount of good for the greatest amount of people in the long run. Right. So that's just an FYI there, an interesting quote. But that's what in 1905, this Forest Service came, and they manage all the federal lands, public lands too. Okay, so national forests and grasslands encompass, I'm on slide 9. National forests and grasslands encompass 193 million acres of land, which is an area equivalent to the size of Texas. So national forests and national grasslands encompass the area of about the size of Texas all throughout the country. So it's a very, very large area, and you can extend that. You can open up that map and check out where, even looking at it in this small view that I'm looking at it in, I see, you can see the Appalachian Mountains down the East Coast there, kind of from the bottom of us all the way down to Georgia-ish. And then you can also see the forests up in the Northwest, which I was talking about recently, the redwoods and these large forests. You can actually see that in the middle of the land, in the middle of the country, there's a lot of grassland. So I'll let you look at that map and sort of get an idea of where these things are. Slide 10 is where you get what you need to do today. You were watching a YouTube video, the last 2 sets of slides. You're watching a YouTube video called Survivors of the Firestorm, right? You are going to continue that. You are going to go 16 minutes to 36 minutes. All right. When you go 16 minutes to 36 minutes, the link is in the speaker notes there to the YouTube video. After that, on slide 11, you're going to look through the slides again and get those definitions down. And then you're going to look at the 5 topics on right here: clear cutting, seed tree. We just went through all of those, so go back and take a look. And then after you watch the video up to minute 36, you're going to answer the questions on the slide here in the speaker notes. Okay, so it asks you which forest management strategy, so of these 5 that are listed on the right-hand side of the slide, which of the forest management strategies most mimic the natural regeneration for the trees shown in the video segment. So you got to watch the video segment. And then the first one they're asking about is eucalyptus trees. All right, so when you see the video and they start talking about eucalyptus trees, perk up. And 2, mountain ash trees. When they hear that, start looking at that. All right. So you can look at this question before you watch the video. It'll help you zero in on what you need to write down. All right. That is what I got going on. We didn't exactly talk about forest fires yet, but we are going to. I'm just going to look as we're still on here. Dun, 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 dun. Give me a second. And I'm just looking through some of the unit things here. I'm looking at my unit plan just to give you an idea of where we're going with this. So this whole forest management thing, this is also a part of agriculture, right? How we manage the forests. My computer is slow today. I hope you are all being safe. I hope you're all relaxing and doing what you are supposed to do and continuing with social distance. We have gotten the news that we'll be closed for the rest of the year. That kind of stinks. All right, so you're looking at land management. Okay, cool, cool, cool. All right. So where we're going after this land management is we're going to go to a specific set of stuff on forest fires. So what you should expect is to watch that video and to answer those questions in that last slide, on that last slide there. And then the next time you sign on, there will be an ed puzzle that has to do with forest management, right? So today we're doing the slides. You're getting a little bit of knowledge. You're doing a little bit of work by watching a video. And then the next time we meet, there should be an ed puzzle. That ed puzzle will pertain to forest management. All right. I'll try not to get forest management and forest fires are very closely related. That's why I had to stop and look at something real quick, because a lot of the ways that we manage, I think you know this already, a lot of the ways we manage fires is we do have controlled burns, controlled fires, but the reason why the slides are separate is because forest fires happen in a very natural way too, right? And because of humans and non-controlled forest fires. So I think we're going to stick to that and then mention that it's also a way to manage. So the ed puzzle may have some stuff with forest fires in it. So you're just going to watch that video and answer the questions, and you'll have a heads up for the next time we go through the slides for forest fires. All right. So slides, video, answer some questions. Make sure if you forgot to do stuff, if you didn't do the first ed puzzle, get to it. If you didn't do the quiz, get to it. All the grades are in. The grades are in. There's 3 grades for 4th cycle already. One I carried over from late in the 3rd cycle, you'll see. But there are 3 grades going so far. Make sure if you're talking to people and you're chatting to people and you're Snapchatting to people, make sure you're telling everybody to keep signing on. You got to do this. Just because they said we're not going to meet anymore does not mean by any chance that you can just stop. If you stop, you're going to get the grade that's reflected on that. And the thing that I'm thinking about, and I don't know this is just something I was thinking about the other day with seniors, is that if you are, applying colleges and in college and stuff like that, a lot of times they say, oh, once you get accepted to a college, they really don't look at the last cycle or the last couple of cycles. They don't go back and look at your grades. A lot of colleges do look at your final transcript and want your final transcript to see if you slacked off after acceptance. But a lot don't. I have a feeling that because there's so much time in this distance learning, you do a lot of distance learning in colleges, a lot of online courses throughout your college career. I have a feeling they may go back. A lot of these colleges don't usually do it. They might go back and they might look at your transcripts for these 2 cycles of distance learning to see how well you are, how responsible you are, because it definitely shows responsibility on your part. Nobody's forcing you to come to a room, but you're still supposed to do your work. So I just get worried that they might look, universities might look at that. So you want to make sure you're always signing on every day. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're doing all this work and getting it done. You don't want to give up in 4th cycle when you're an AB student all year and just say, I'm done, and get a bad grade and lower your GPA. You don't want that to happen, even though you're seniors and it's almost over and blah, blah, blah. I'm just concerned about that. I'm worried about you guys. I see a lot more zeros in the last week than I've seen all of 3rd cycle. So that can't happen. All right, I'm out. I'm talking too much. Sometimes I go off on tangents. So I figured I'd give you one of those tangents. Do the work, and I will talk to you soon.